Hi everyone, welcome to February 6th. This is your stock market recap for February 6th. Before we get started, this video is for information purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before investing in stocks. Okay, so like always, let's get started with the sectors. So from my watch list, the transports seem to be the strongest of the day, and we can see that we've hit that top trend line. This is where we found, where we saw that we would find some interim resistance. Although if we do break above, we can possibly run up from here, like we have in the past in 2021 as well. So I would kind of keep an eye on break above this area, which is around the 270 mark on IYT, and then start using that as a stop so that we can protect ourselves from stuff like this happening. So transports at a key zone. I'm gonna wait and see how this develops here, but this is kind of a point that we had been waiting for a while. TAN showing a little bit of rebound. The solar stocks, they are very, very dependent. And so with the rates down a bit and TLT up a bit today, this is showing a bit of recovery here. IHI medical devices find themselves at a key point. We've had a V-shaped recovery from these October lows and all the way back to where we were in July. But if we kind of look at the longer term picture, let's just take a look at the weekly chart. We can see we are kind of in a sideways consolidation here, but we are above the 5-week. We are above the I think the 200 week is above. Yeah, so so moving averages are a bit mixed up because of this fast recovery here. So the 50 and the 20-day made it below the 200-day. So these crossing above would kind of set it right and put this in a long-term uptrend. Although what needs to happen before that is we need to take out these highs and close above that as well. So IHI also at a key point of development here. We're going to wait and see how this develops as well. XLB is materials, showing a bit of recovery today, again with the rates down and TLT up. But one thing over here is that we are contesting with that 5-week, which is downtrending 5-week. So this could act as resistance. We need to close above this to kind of set things right and in the right direction for materials. So real estate sector had a bit of a, let's move over to the daily chart here. You can see that there was a false breakdown, and this area, where it has been an area of demand before, kind of came into play and has pushed us back into this wedge. So we are still in a bull flag type of a formation here. This would be negated by a close below, especially a weekly close below this downward trend line. But what I would like to see is a break of this uptrend line, and then we can start to look at possibilities in IYR. This is back to a yellow. XRT retail, very tight consolidation here. I'm liking the price action. I'm going to put a alert for a break above or an alert for a breakdown to see what happens as a result of this consolidation. Is it accumulation or is it distribution? Could be either way right now. TLT showing that rebound and closing up some of that gap from before, although gaps don't mean much here in TLT, not like they do in stocks, but we are closing above yesterday's highs. This from this push up from the demand area that we had marked on the chart, which is the previous low from December from January, late January, last week of January. We saw a huge run up all the way back down, and now we're trying to pick ourselves back up. So even sideways here, honestly, is not a bad deal for TLT as long as there's no breakdown. That would be really bad for stocks. XLV chugging along, although now starting to get a bit extended. We can see every time it could kind of stay extended for a while. But if it does that, it does correct from every now and then. So it is starting to do that. It is starting to get a bit extended from the moving average here, but it is still in a nice uptrend, XLV, and has been since the start of the year. IWC is the microcap ETF. We can see sideways consolidation here. We have an alert for the break above. Let's just put one for the downside as well, and just kind of keep a look on when we break out of the sideways consolidation. So XLI also at a key point where, same as IYT, at the top of this trend line, a little bit more to go for it, but close enough that you could start treating this as a short-term resistance. It could do something like this and hug along kind of the trend line for a week or two, and then decide a direction. Would it be kind of a breakdown or break above? But it is at a key point, definitely. So gotta be a little bit cautious for XLI and IYT, so industrials and transport trades for the time being. XLE showed some recovery from yesterday, so it looked like it was going to break down, but it did come back up, and it is above those 5-day and 250 and all these other moving averages, but they don't mean as much right now because it's not a trending stock, it's a sideways stock or a sideways sector. So yes, it has been able to get through some of these resistances, but it is still an overall sideways pattern. XBI is showing a good recovery here from the lows, putting in a bit of a higher low, if you can see this. Yeah, so a bit of a higher low than this one, which is good, but we are wanting a close above this anchored VWAP, which has been guiding that downtrend in XBI. No longer do I think this will, intuition just shows or tells me, again, this is not advice, but it looks like it has had many opportunities to break down. Either it could be just waiting for more information, for more earnings to come in play, or it doesn't want to break down yet and wants to move higher. And a prerequisite of that would be for the TLT to kind of continue either an uptrend or a sideways. If this starts to break down, then XBI is more likely to break down as well. Utilities not doing anything great here. Had a bit of a breakdown the past 2 days and just a bit of a push up here from the lows of late January. Again, utility dependent, rate dependent here, so it would very much depend on what rates do from here. Definitely not one of the stronger sectors for now. IWM small caps contesting with the overhead resistance yesterday. Tried to break above the 200-day, was not able to. Today also 200-day acting as resistance, although we got through it, but the 50 and the 5 got the best of it and pushed it still right under or right at the 200-day. So it could go either way here, since we are contesting with these moving averages from below. When the buyers run out of steam, the sellers could take control and push this lower. That is possible. And again, this one is a rate dependent chart. I'm going to mark it in red because we are contesting from these moving averages on the bottom. And if we look on the weekly, we are hitting it from the 5-week from the bottom. So just not from a position of strength. We need to close above it to start moving this into kind of a yellow area. MDY has a different look. It's not like a breakdown type look. It is still contesting the moving average from the bottom on the weekly. And let's just check on the daily as well. But we are above this 50-day and 200-day and just a more constructive chart here, MDY. I feel like it is also not as widely talked about or looked at. So in general, I like sectors and stocks that are not as widely talked about, because the chances of having traps and false breakdowns and breakouts and stuff is less in those kinds of sectors. So still looking decent, although it is pretty close. If if we have another test of the 50-day here, that would still be okay, but we need to start closing some of these days above these moving averages to bring some of my confidence back in this. But yeah, definitely looking better than IWM does. XLY, not a bad look here. We tried to break above maybe too fast, and this is a check back into the moving averages here, and a hold of these moving averages. So it's not a bad look on XLY. You can see how the demand picked up above the demand zone that we had marked, which means the buyers were eager to get in and really tried pushing this up too quickly. So we kind of a check back was kind of in the cards here, and now let's see if we can hold these moving averages and move up here in XLY. XLP, consumer staples, this is in that sell zone, but it is chugging along and trending up here. The only thing with these sellers is if they come in and push it lower, we could have maybe a test of the bottom area here before we move up, but it's just could just resolve sideways. It's not a bad chart, but I just don't like all this sell side resistance that is it has to contest through. If it goes through, it could chug along, be a slow mover. I would start getting interested in it when we have a breakout above this range. But since it's not a bad chart, it's still marked in yellow. IYZ looking not great still. We have a close yesterday and looks like today as well, unless it turns around below that 20-day. So that is looking, telecommunications starting to look a little bit weaker with two closes below that, and you can see it hasn't done that for a while. So this could be one of the sectors to start breaking down soon, sooner if the market decides to break down from here. S&P just holding in there, still above that 5-day, but is consolidating that move. It has some room to run and go up into that 500 or 5,000 S&P range before it hits that kind of long-term trend line resistance. So we could see that a rush above and then fall below, something like that. It is consolidating, and it hasn't triggered anything because it's still above that 5-day here. IJT has a sideways look to it. There's two ways to look at it. It's like, actually, I only see one way right now on this one. But yeah, because of these closures here, it makes it not as clean as an inverse head and shoulders on the MDY. But a few things can happen. This could be a double top here, and this being a lower high, and you can see this gap here, right? Now if we have a gap down here, this could start acting as an island reversal. So if we have a gap below the 50-day and a kind of move below the 50-day here, IJT would be I'm going to start marking in this in red because it's very close to a breakdown here. Two things supporting it. So small cap growth, not looking the best. What would need to negate that? We would need to negate that is a hold and bounce from the 50-day and a closure above some of these moving averages here around the 122 mark. XLF is interesting. We're just consolidating some of this move, but we have moved below that 5-day, and I've tried to get above that, but hitting resistance as we approach the 5-day from underneath. But still not a bad area. A closure below that 38 level would possibly be a breakdown. You can see there's a previous buying selling resistance that has come through here, which would now act as support on the way down. So if the market falls apart, we could see a retest of the 38 before we move up in XLF. But still, the one downside I see is it's not holding that 5-day. The short-term trend is kind of sideways for now. So it really depends, I think, on the overall market here, but still marked in green because it's not breaking down so far. XME. So this is another one where we have two closures below. I think we had metals and mining. Yeah. Two closures below the 50-day here. Into this red box, and we tried another escape from this red box but failed, and it has been kind of in a sideways pattern for a bit, so not looking the healthiest here. UUP, $1 tried to chug higher, and today closing into some of this gap was formed from between yesterday and today. So a bit of weakness coming through in dollar, but still holding through. You can see this previous high is now starting to act as resistance, so we could see some sideways consolidation in a dollar before it move up higher. XLC Communication Services, this is just trying to close some of this gap it has. So this one is a inverse island reversal, so you can see the island reversal on the bottom, and then this kind of creating that island for the move up. So what I would like to see if it does go retest this 5-day is that it holds it. So we can put an alert right underneath that 5-day to see if we have a breakdown. But as long as it is above the 5-day and holding that 5-day, this is not a bad look here. The Qs are interesting. So our trend line is just kind of hugging it and moving along, but it is coming through as resistance every time it touches it. If we have a break above, then we could see it running to about 440 as well, which would be the upper trend line. And it has gotten to that level previously with, I believe this was earnings, or maybe this was the earnings play. But in very exuberant markets, it has a possibility of getting to that 440. And that would coincide with the little bit of room that S&P also has to run up. Right, so we could see that still. ITB. So ITB still sideways pattern, although one of the, 3 of these days we have wicks moving up, but today closing into that wick, we still have some room to run up into the end of the day. But so far, overall, if you look at it, it looks like one of the days where I would have expected ITB to do better because of TLT being up and rates down. But just overall, just a sideways pattern. Nothing great going on here. You can think of this as a head and shoulders maybe, and look at it that way. But we do need a confirmation with a close below that 97.33. So yeah, sideways for now. So no marks here. XLK. Coming back into that 5-day today, we had a break above, now coming back into 5-day, but respecting and holding it, so it's still in green. KRE still the 5-day sharply pointing down, and this is, I think, 20-30% of IWM, also possibly causing weakness in IWM as all right, SMH, finally we have the weakest sector of the day, which was the strongest sector of the day yesterday, but we could possibly be a double top here, or it's just a consolidation here. It's hard to say what is going on in this. We know that some of the single stocks, specific stocks like Nvidia, have gotten to their the upper trend line, and so it is possible this ends up being a double top in SMH, but it would need further confirmation for us to say that. If we look at single stocks, IBM has been a stock of interest. We had this huge gap up on earnings. Well, you can see that it is closing some of this gap here, which is a good thing. We would like it to come, back down, give some buying opportunities here in IBM. Again, not trading advice here, just a observation. Please do your own due diligence before investing. Tesla contesting with that downward 5-day, although pushing up and rejecting that 170 area 2 days in a row, just gives some confidence that there are some buyers still interested in this area. It has been an area of interest in the past. 180 has been kind of a key area for the stock. It needs to close above that 5-day to get an upward momentum. Here we tried to do that. We would close right at the 5-day and just been breaking down ever since. A close above the 5-day could open it up to some opportunities for a possible short-term reversal. But overall, the trend still remains down with some more room to run. If you look at these trend lines, some more room to run around the 165 if it needs to or thinks wants to go further down from here. Shop is interesting. Believe it's waiting for earnings and tightly kind of consolidating right under that. If you look on the weekly, it's right under that 200 week over here, and it is just waiting for that earnings announcement, I feel. And it could be a powerful move here in shop because it has been stuck in this level for a while, and earnings could be the catalyst to really push it up here. So keep an eye on this one with earnings coming up, I think 2 days. Check. So a week, I guess, from now, 13th of Feb. Another stock of interest, SAIA in the transports category, but as we talked about earlier in this sector review, transports are at a long-term trend line, so we could see some back and filling in transports. So keep that in mind, that it had good earnings, and when it pulls back and starts to see some support, we don't know those levels yet. Either that, or if IJT transports decides to break out of the upward trend line, then also this starts to move up. That would be an area to get interested in. For now, something to kind of just keep an eye on. CMCO was also interesting to me. Mark this in yellow. It is decent. It is hugging that 5-day and just moving up. Might need some sideways consolidation. It's just not a great entry if you think about it. It has previous resistances here that is contesting with, and I mean, you could enter with it respecting the 5 days so well. You could enter as long as you don't get a daily close below that 5-day. You can see how it's respecting that ever since the 19th of January, right? 36 to 41. What is that move here? It's already done 15%, 14% from there. So it needs a little bit of tighter kind of consolidation and a breakout. And the reason is because there's just too much volatility here for the dollar and the risk that you're gonna put into the trade to get into this name, unless you really, really want it, or unless you're adding to a previous position. This does not look like the right setup. It needs more time. DHI was interesting. If you look at a single stock, we have kind of a trying to get above that 20, is that 50 day maybe? Yeah, 50 day. And we spent a few days above that 50 day, but with the 5 day, or is that, no, it's the 20 day, kind of just creating resistance for it, and today pushing it below that 50. It just looks like we could see a further break like this, and you can see that we have a not that spectacular of earnings that caused this move. Although gotta kind of keep in mind that ITB is sideways, so this could retake that 50 day tomorrow or maybe next week and start to move up. But until then, that is a possible kind of short to look at with 50 day, or if you want to be more generous, than the 20 day here as your stop. SITM is interesting on the semiconductor side. I can see the 5 day kind of curling up, and we are in the long-term trend line where it has been supported, and a closure yesterday above the 5 day, today above the 5 day. Just with earnings coming up, could be a play into earnings for a little bit of recovery, with buyers getting interested in it before earnings come through. And SMCI putting in a wild day, going all the way down to 628, where it was down at like 5% at some point, but got picked right back up. Not ready to break down yet. Semiconductors, you can see that Nvidia also tried to break down, but it is holding above that long-term trend line. So far, we can see how the weekly is starting to look a little different. I think that we need some consolidation here for this crazy monstrous move from this flag here for Nvidia, and maybe even some backing and filling down to the 620 level. ARM has a different look. It has been one of kind of not shown that strength that the other stocks have shown in the semiconductor space, but it is still holding where it needs to. It tends to kind of gap up and sell off and then rally at the end of the day. That's what I've seen for the past 2 days, ever since it's got out of that demand zone here. that's what it likes to do. So maybe selling the open would be kind of an thing to look at here. We have earnings coming up tomorrow. Doesn't tell me if this is, yeah, here, aftermarket close tomorrow. We have earnings for ARM coming up, so that would be something to watch. Maybe that'll put this in the right gear. This stock. All right, Visa has been kind of interesting. We talked about XLF contesting with that 5-day from the bottom, and then this is also doing similarly. Although you can see that the 5-day is at 275.80, we're at 275.94, so just above that 5-day. If we can close, somewhere on the 276 or above, would be a good sign. Maybe a sign of some recovery and move out of this sideways consolidation for continuation of this trend in Visa. So indifferent for now. No break above or break below in Visa. AXB, another stock of interest in the finance sector. It is holding that 5-day, and it is holding that from the top, and so acting as support. We tried to lose it here, but from an intraday perspective, none of these days have had closures below the 5-day, and it is respecting that move up on earnings. So no, not a bad look here in AXB. Crisp was interesting. You could see how it has had these closures in this zone for some time now, and earnings are coming up on Tuesday next week, and we could see there's a closure above this trend line here, but no volume confirmation yet. So could be a fake move, or just there's not enough of a market to represent this move. So when sellers commit, it could really push this back down into this channel. We need volume confirmation. Maybe we get that on earnings. I'm not sure, but so far, back into kind of a yellow watch and see, especially with that break above that area, but no volume confirmation yet, unfortunately. SYK getting in a little bit of a pullback today, with it contesting with that 5-day. 5-day being around 340.1, and it's currently at 339.6. So too close to call here, but keep an eye on these ones. The healthcare sector seems to be doing well, and we are getting some sideways consolidation in these, in my opinion, the leaders of this group. So keep an eye on them if you are interested in entering some of these positions. Finally, MOD is a stock that we've been interested in, but this move just kind of makes me feel like it needs some more time to digest and maybe form some sort of a base in this area, and I need kind of a tighter entry point in MOD. I still like it long term. Short term feels like it needs some time. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. That was it for today. A little bit longer. We went more detail in the individual stocks. So if that is helpful for you guys, let me know, and I can definitely include more of that in the daily recaps. Thanks.